good afternoon. All of my brothers and brothers of the nation, I hope that y'all ready to awaken. Now, with this getting started, it's, I kind of stopped for about a month. I know the last video I uploaded was a little over a month ago. The reasoning for that and behind that is I needed to take a break, honestly. I really needed to take a break. Even though I just started, I really thought that I had like everything worked out. I had a vision that I wanted for the channel, and then I had a direction that I was headed, and I had all of what I wanted to do set out. Now the only issue was I started doing this course. Um, it was always supposed to be 5 days, but it ended up being like eight, I think, 7 or 8, and it ended up being a great, magnificent course led by two entrepreneurs who are legends in the entrepreneurial business. Um, they've been doing this for like years, about 45 years, as far as I know, 45 years. And it really made it difficult for me to really try to bring out the information I was trying to bring forth for all of you. And even though it's very little right now, and as we grow, I will get more feedback as to where and what we're gonna do. But um, I kind of came up with a new solidified idea, and to start, what I was doing with the YouTube, the awakening the mind, body, and soul on your journey to growth. The whole point of that was because I wanted a voice. I wanted there to be a voice where there isn't a voice, so that people could, without any concern or feedback, just put something that they need to talk about, maybe be in a Zoom call or a video chat quick, and we just talk and, come to some sort of conclusion. But at least it's a safe space that if anybody says anything, you can just ignore that and move on because you're in a safe space. Now, that could still partially be about it, but I decided to take that entire concept out of the channel. And because of what I was learning, I ended up turning it into a 4-day course. So this 4-day course is going to start off with a look. Day 1 is mind, day 2 body, day 3 soul, and day 4 I'm going to save that as a surprise for you when you get into it, because day 4 is going to be bringing everything, and it's great. It's going to be spectacular. So that's my course layout, which I have here. These are the notes, the outline for my kind of course and whatnot. And as far as I know, I think day 3 is where I left off. This is day 1. Yeah, so even with this course, like I'm still even like a little bit all over the place, to be honest, because it what I was learning and whatnot, it was kind of it was a very difficult sort of thing to come to, but the course is phenomenal. I mean, that's all up and ready. It'll be about $200 on average, and then for things might get cheaper, blah blah blah, depending on who it is and your situation. We never know, but we'll talk about that later on. I'll leave the information as things progress with that. But let's get into what this is now. So I still needed something strong and powerful for this YouTube channel. And that's when I decided to come to, these are my notes for this video, by the way. Just in case you are wondering, with a resume on the back. Ha 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 ha, scrap paper, don't want to waste. Anyway, which led me to like another important idea and kind of path that I wanted to lead this channel down. And the new name, which will all be uploaded and altered when this video is done, hopefully by the end of today. So please, stay tuned for the rest of the upcoming stuff. It's gonna be called Food for Thought, and that is dedicated to Mick Jenkins, my man. So, anyway, I'm gonna get right into it. As you all know who I am, and you know that I'm a musician, a comedian, a spiritual enlightener. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm a human, I'm me. And as I tried to give you a brief description in those videos earlier, it's been a struggle for me. Huge struggle. Like, huge. Almost unbearable, to be honest. But I'm still here. And now, I guess to start this off, the food for thought, I really wanted to get into problems of perception. Now, this food for thought thing is going to be every day, either a quote or something that is important to me that got me thinking, or something as we get on, that you would like to talk about. Anything you'd like to talk about food for thought wise. If you got a quote that really gets you thinking and you want to dissect it, if you've got a thought that you're thinking and you want to dissect it, or if you want to learn and whatnot. That's the whole point of this. It's a learning channel now. So to be a learning, growing, experience orientated journey that will also coincide with the course. Now, the reason why I decided to take away the Journey to Growth from the channel and put it as a course is because I was doing the course anyway, and I thought to myself, like, it'd be unfair to have people paying for it when on a platform I'm doing it all for free. So if you see my dilemma, that's kind of where I had to draw the line and do what I'm doing now. So I'd say let's just hop right into this. So, the reason why I wanted to talk about perception is because perception is the one thing corrupting, driving, and fueling both positive and negative aspects of our universe and our world, I should say. Now, we're not going to argue about God being real, God not being real, this happening, that happening, blah, 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 blah. As we get into, talking, we might be able to get into that. But as it stands right now, this has nothing to do with that. This is all solely to do with everything you feel instinctively and consciously, even subconsciously. So, the problems of perception, let's start off with what is perception. So, perception is your way of looking at things, how you have interpreted the information. That's your perception of things, the way you take information and process it through your mind. That's perception. Which I guess could also be opinion, in a way. Humans, let's start off, humans are extremely ignorant creatures, and even though we like to believe we're intelligent and when we know a lot, we know nothing. And that's just the way it is. And so yeah, that's kind of like just how it is. We have an instinct that orients oneself to the source of one's ignorance. Now, these are all notes that I just decided as I was thinking about this within time, and some videos that I was watching and research I was doing. These are just notes I accumulated. So this video is pretty much just going to be a collective knowledge of food for your mind. And you can do with as you wish. I just suggest you at least listen and have an open mind. So anyway, I'll just repeat the second one that I said. We have an instinct that orientates oneself to the source of one's ignorance. Now, a lot of problem with the food for thought that people are gonna have is you got to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of self reflection, and people don't do that. And I've been lucky enough to be given the type of lifestyle that kind of drove me into forcing me to do it in that way. I was forced, um, universally forced, cosmically forced, but either way, I was forced, and I did it. And I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I've been on my own. And the reason why that statement itself is super important is like the naive and ignorance around minor topics and then like great topics and personal topics. It the naive and the ignorance, it takes away from the honest conversation. It can it could get people thinking, you know? And also, you could learn. But you gotta be open to being taught. And the ignorance that a lot of people have is, I believe this is the way it is, and nothing can tell me different. And that's very dangerous. Super dangerous. And there's a very thin line between it being helpful and it being dangerous, like productive and dangerous. So to that, I say that the instinct is highly necessary. For like example, the reason I say that is because there could be a huge shortage of knowledge, but there is never, ever, 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 ever a shortage of ignorance. We have to deal with the fact we don't know enough as finite creatures. And that's the thing too, right? We don't live forever. We only live 60 to 80 years if we're lucky. 100 if you're the 1 in a million that are healthy like that or have the money to be healthy like that. So, really, I don't know, think about that. Really think about all that. So the reason I bring it up is because a lot of our issues this day, like the reason why everything's corrupt, the reason why nobody's able to come to a conclusion, the reason why corporations are being given power without any second looking, second guessing, reflecting, research, that sort of thing. Like nothing is, but it's all happening in front of our face, People are constantly fighting about religion and race and gender orientation and how we are going to die, when the world will end, if it will end, and blah, 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 blah. These are all great conversations to have, But if you're being reasonable, if you're being realistic, if you're actually using your mind, and having an honest, deep, integral conversation meant to dissect and fix a problem. Which I guess then leads me to this one word that I wrote down, and I kind of understand why I wrote it down, and if I think about it, stimulus. So a big part of our perception is being stimulated by that perception. It's like an addiction in a way. Your perception gives you a way of thinking, which then gives you an opinion. And for some reason nowadays, we think the opinion is the fact. But fact and opinion are two different things. Fact is something that is real, that has been researched and tested and has data. And opinion is something you create, fictionalize, and make up in your mind. And a lot of the fights that I've been having with a lot of youth and younger people these days is opinion is fact, and fact isn't fact, which is kind of messed up when you really think about it. Like, I feel idiotic even trying to explain to you the type of discussions I've had to have. And it's very irritating when it's something as stupid, minuscule, and like small as that. But that's what happens, One doesn't learn except by encountering it as novelty first. Now, novelty means new or unusual. And honestly, I give everything to that one quote right there. That one note that I took, the quote, I kind of made it into a quote, sort of, but it's like this note that I took. I don't know. One doesn't learn anything except by encountering it as novelty first. And I feel that's completely true because from experience, watching other people and being in the conversations, if you go into a conversation acting like you're Mr. Know-it-all and you already know everything, you come out of that with no knowledge, or very rarely learning anything. But if you walk into a conversation or you go into a topic with the utmost of open minds, then you really start, you know, start to think differently. Your brain starts working. You get a different kind of stimuli. Everything is about stimuli. That's why stimulus was a word I decided to put as a note from the stuff I was researching. Every time I was researching about anything, stimulus always came up, or stimuli. There is an endless number of things you can do to a single image. So how is perception possible? And the answer is, we don't know. Well, we didn't know. If you can't perceive something even simple in some canonical manner, that's self-evident, how can one derive a single reliable canonical interpretation of a given text? If you can't perceive something even simple in some canonical manner, that's self-evident, how can one derive a single reliable canonical interpretation of a given text? Now, I'm going to take a second here because this word I've struggled with. And I remember looking it up, but now I forget. So let's just look it up real quick. Canonical. This thing's like my Bible. This is a dictionary thesaurus, man. I think I've had this for like 12, 13 years. Okay. Canon. Here we are. It's an adjective. Oh. Of or according to church law, of or belonging to a canon. That does not make any sense. Anyway, a regular sentence is amenable to multiple interpretations. A complex sentence at the beginning has endless number of interpretations. Big problem. So when you end up having a conversation or you're trying to explain something to somebody, try not to have such a complex sentence, because if you try to complicate the ideas and express yourself in a complicated manner, you're not going to get much out of the person who's receiving this information. Whereas if you have like a regular, if you just not really dumb it down, but if you just try and talk or have a discussion in the way that many would, then there it is, you know? To solve the problem of perception, duplicate evolution through hardware, which is what a lot of people are doing nowadays. So a lot of people are trying to, figure out how to get biased opinion to be separated from fact, which is perception from reality. And a lot of people are stuck in their perception because a fantasy is a lot easier to deal with than reality. And you're the creator of it, therefore you can be happy doing it whatever the hell you want. And if you do pay attention, there are a lot of studies being done these days through computer, like AI technology and whatnot, that are scientists trying to solve this exact problem that we're talking about. And a lot of my information comes from many great sources, but Jordan Peterson being the main source that brought me into all these other sources. And especially the talk that he had with like Richard Dawkins. Whew. Too bad I couldn't see the man's face, but got to hear the voice and you heard all the information, which was amazing. So I really recommend. I could even put that link, if you would, in the description below. That was an amazing talk. He also had another talk with another scientist, and even that, it got me thinking, because perception is everything, which is why I found or thought it would be a super important topic, because I've got 3 pages of notes just on perception. And I'm not finished yet. I could keep going and going and going and going and going. So let's go with this next part. So perception requires embodiment, therefore no perception without embodiment. Utilization behavior affects motor response. Object, thought, motor responses, not how it works. The object itself announces its utility in the perception. Part of visual system is motor system. You don't see the objects and infer meaning. Rather, you see meaning and infer objects. There we go. Another food for thought. You see, this is what I'm talking about. These are the things that are going to be here on a daily basis. Really think about what I had just said, okay? I'll repeat it. You don't see object. Sorry, I'll repeat the first one. The object itself announces its utility in the perception. Part of visual system is motor system. You don't see objects and infer meaning. Rather, you see meaning and infer objects. Which that honestly gets like pretty much down to the nitty gritty of what everything I was going to talk about. That one phrase. It's pretty much, it encompasses everything that I was just trying to relay, so really think about that and put your thoughts down in the comment below. Let's talk about it, let's have a conversation. That's the whole point. Let's get it going. Next on this little note journey, no excuse philosophically from leaping from a mystery that utterly profound to the conclusion. What some philosophical, socially constructed process is therefore at the basis of the act of perception and categorization itself. I'll repeat. No excuse philosophically from leaping from a mystery that's utterly profound, problem of perception, to the conclusion. What some pathological, socially constructed process is therefore at the basis of the act of perception and categorization itself. We are made to believe that one solves the problem of categorization is by imposing your will to power on the world. And we've seen this happen countless of times throughout history of our society. The main one everybody knows about is the Roman Empire. Man, did that ever last. No. The Greeks. Oh, if you, like myself, were interested in ancient civilization, the reason why I was interested is because that led up to this. There are countless of civilizations that have risen and fallen over the centuries, and it's because we were learning and perception. So it's never gonna go away, which is why I figure, you know what? Why not talk about it? It's a never-ending topic that we could continue to learn and keep learning and keep learning. And I feel that the more people learn about the way they can perceive things and their perception, it can help us to conversate and spread the proper knowledge and the proper information to everyone. So let's go back to this. We are made to believe that one solves the problem of categorization, like I was saying, by imposing your will to power on the world. In some winner-take-all game of dominion and oppression. Sorry about that. Mighty fine woman just walked by, so I had to pause the recording of this. Now we're back at it. So I'm going to repeat that whole thing again, okay? We are made to believe that one solves the problem of categorization by imposing your will to power on the world. In some winner-take-all game of dominion and oppression. So in brackets, the most cynical and untrue statement and or way of thinking is a way to make habitual order from chaos. That's crazy. I'm going to try to read that one more time, okay? See if I can... We are made to believe that one solves the problem of categorization by imposing your will to power on the world. In some winner-take-all game of dominion and oppression. The most cynical and untrue statement and or way of thinking as a way to make habitual order from chaos. And that is like, I'm seeing as... Like, the thing, I'm not even seeing order happen. I'm just seeing constant manifestations of chaos everywhere. Like, people can't have a discussion on where the fuck to go for vacation without something being wrong about a statement they made or something they said or a reasoning they have. Sorry about that. And it just really gets you thinking that, like, all these issues that we've come up with recently, gender orientation, racism, and all that stuff, it's like, I'm not going to, be coming on here and starting to say, like, oh, it's a mental health issue, blah, 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 and claim to know things that I don't know. But what I do know is whether or not you were being forced to be in the closet or hide the closet or whatever the hell it is, a lot of new stuff has only recently come to play since about 2017, 2018. Maybe a little bit before, but it really started coming to fruition then, before COVID. And you even watched it take place during COVID. A lot of people don't want to believe it, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's just conspiracy theory, and maybe it is. Honestly, though, if I'm looking at all of the facts that are provided and I'm taking everything into account, excuse me, in situations like this, it's not solely about perception. It's situations like, COVID and sort of guess you could say big pharma, trying to do whatever it is that they do. With the division and the oppression, and honestly, it's like they're just scaring people into doing whatever it is they want, or scaring people into allowing them to have the control that they need over the world and whatnot. Okay, next note. Another thing that they try to have us believe, that like in the animal kingdom, one might think the hierarchy we use to orientate ourselves in as a strategy we are used to guarantee our survival. We fight tooth and nail with nature, red and claw, to climb the hierarchies of dominance as a consequence of our will to power. That's just simply not true on how it works. So, again, like we have seen about 10 so years ago, it changed, but up until about 2015, that was the way everybody thought about everything. It was a hierarchy. You needed to make more money to be higher up in the chain, and therefore you'd have more power and more influence. Now it's just about getting people on your side and behind you, but they still try to have that dominance hierarchy. And therefore is another problem of perception, because then it leads a group of people, focused solely thinking on their own selfish intent, what they can get out of every situation, blah, 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 blah. Whereas if you've kind of like negate the whole will to power, you end up getting a unified group of people who may have different opinions and different ways of going about things, but they can work together as a team, because then judgment isn't involved, and criticism, and things like will to power, trying to be the higher up and beat everybody down so that you can be up. Like, that's really difficult, and a big thing of what I'm learning about the way people interact and things, and I may have spoken about it when I was starting this channel up at the previous videos, but I'm gonna kind of get into it a bit here, is people are going to constantly impose their perception upon you, your friends, family. Hell, like the news do it on a daily basis to everybody. They're constantly on a daily basis. That's nice. But if we really take the time, like, I guess just to understand and dissect a hierarchy, things could work, but I don't even really think so. I think we need to scratch that whole thing. Because like this perception problem, it's not even like it is deeper, it has gone deep, and it's like it's being shoved further and further in the more that nobody pays attention and nobody talks about any of it. So next is like, I'll continue on with it. This is like the will to power is the dominance hierarchy, and what does it stem from? And this is where we're going to get into some interesting stuff. The way to show, or the way for you to show yourself or to tell yourself, or for you to allow yourself to see that you're being a part of a dominance hierarchy and you're involved in it, is by, I'd say, mental health is the best way to go about it, because psychopaths or psychopathic malevolent ideals, those are usually the stems to a dominance hierarchy, but then again, that's a perception of a group of people. A lot of us don't believe in the dominance hierarchy. A lot of us don't believe in psychopathic malevolent ideals, Like right now, there's a huge divide, and it's not even really about like gay, lesbian, trans, straight, blah 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 blah. It's like people are throwing and putting all of these like new ideals and perceptions into the world without any thought or conversation or dissection or anything whatsoever, no data, and then we're all expected to go along with it, you know? And I'm not saying that we're not allowed to have our own ways of living. We're not allowed to do what it is. Like, we're all free animals, free creatures, free to think, do, and live as we please or choose. I don't know. It's really hard to sort of try and get into, you know? But that's why I wanted to, because there's like every issue we have is surrounded by a perception of something. Someone psychopathic or psychological malevolent ideal. And they are trying to push that on other people, which is why I use something like Jehovah's Witness as a prime example. And most Christian churches or Christian groups, they all try and do the same sort of thing. So we'll continue. And if y'all want to just at any time, you know, just put in the comments or whatever, you know, next video, let's focus more on this, blah, 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 blah. Or let's have a talk on this, you know. Feel free, I can set some stuff up, you know, where maybe we can have the one-on-one chats where, you know, and that way you're still getting, you know, some information and whatnot. Next, there are terrible bad men. They are a minority population that tear their way through overly agreeable population, where men who can be capable of being quite terrible come into play to keep bad men in check. So be a good man capable of being a monster. And that is a big thing Jordan Peterson has been saying this past year, a couple of years. As a man, you need to learn how to be a monster before you can incorporate the monster. And learn to control it. And growing up, too, it's like, I didn't realize it a lot, but now that I really have words to put to it, a lot of the girls in my high school and public schools, you know, that as I was growing up and getting older, a lot of them, we sort of did this, you know? Like, if you weren't a bad boy, or you didn't beat the shit out of somebody and try and get into a fight every single day over something, over someone, over whatever, you weren't hard. And if you weren't hard, you weren't a man. And if you weren't a man, you weren't attractive toward the opposite sex, women in our schools. So I don't know, you know, things me a lot growing up, man. Like, I was perceived as a creep, a gay best friend, all that stupid shit. But what people really didn't know about me is I was ready to murder. I was ready to slit the throat of any woman, any man, all this shit. I was ready to just go off the deep end. And for some reason, I just held it all together. I just held it all in. Kept on piling that shit down and shoving it so far deep that now I don't know if I can bring it back up and deal with it. But still, it's there. And look where we are today, man. It ended up, and that's the thing too, is perception causes problems. Because the way that you perceive things, if you try to put that onto somebody else, you could cause their head to blow up. And then they're mentally distraught, they're mentally unfocused, and now their minds are on something that you have a problem about, and now it is their problem. So they're not even focusing on what it is they need to focus on. They're focusing on what you've made them focus on, what you're perceiving that they need to focus on. That's also the problem with therapy nowadays. A big problem. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. Jordan Peterson's my man. a lot of my information comes from the research he's done or a lot of the places he leads me to. And that's like what I was just like about to get into. Like therapy, I've tried it so many times throughout, and I say this with so much sincerity and honesty that I wish somebody like Jordan Peterson was a therapist for me growing up at CAMH or something, you know? The type... A therapist isn't supposed to lead you down what they perceive to be the problem. Which is, think about it for a sec. If you go, like, you know, to your therapist or your counselor, that person isn't supposed to be like, oh, this is what I think is wrong with you and try to figure out if that's it. No. They're supposed to be there to help you dissect your problems in a good way. Jordan described it or talked about it, Dr. Peterson. He talked about it like through a story that he had with one of his patients. And one of his patients was trying to figure out if he was gay or not, and blah, 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 if, like, what was really going on and who he was and all this kind of stuff. 9 times out of 10 nowadays, what you'll do is you'll meet a therapist who will have their own ideology and own opinion and perception of what your problem is, and then they're going to do everything they can to make sure that it shows that what they're saying is true. Then they prescribe you a bunch of medication. Now, Jordan Peterson's approach is the proper approach, which is why I realized I wasn't getting any help that I was needing throughout my whole entire youth. And it was because all of these psychiatrists were trying to diagnose me with the most severe problem, you know, put me up on the strongest drugs and all this kind of shit. And to be honest, it seemed a lot easier, man. The disability check, all this shit that was gonna come through, the benefits, it all seemed way better. But then again, that was my perception. I was allowing myself to perceive a comfortable situation as a luxurious life where I could do whatever I felt necessary or wanted. But then again, that was my perception, and my perception was fooling me on my situation. And it was fooling me on my solution to the situation. Therefore, I was coming up with a falsified solution to a fake problem. Because that problem was just a perception I created. When in all reality, the problem I was not focusing on solving. And then 3 years ago, I met my big brother, my biggest brother, Ram. I call him Rambo. This guy here, he's fucking saved my life. This is a spiritual advisor, mentor, hopefully, if the guy will finally, you know, take me under his wing, I'll be his apprentice, and this guy will be my master, or sensei, whatever it is that they call it in Muay Thai, instructor, blah blah blah. But anyway, let's move on from that. But that's like what I mean, you know, it's all about the perception. It's like, a lot of people know too that your negative thoughts lead to negative outcomes, but your positive thoughts can lead to positive it can lead to negative, but it can lead to, there's always positive outcomes. I think that's where I'll end on now. Okay, so next on my notes. All right. And if I'm going too fast, just take your time with the video. And also, I need you all, like everybody, I need you all just to leave all your feedback. Don't be negative and don't just be a dick or a troll. I don't really need that. I need honest feedback in those comments on these videos, how they're going, how you like them, what I'm doing right, what I'm doing, what I could improve on, or, you know, do better to entice you guys. And also, your perception on these videos is super important, because that perception is also Oh wait, how do I say that? The perception is also you knowing that your brain is working, and it also helps me to know that you guys are interacting. When you allow, when you try to explain your perception of things, or your opinion and way of going about things, that's the whole point of all of this video today, is solely just to focus on, and we may even touch on it throughout the rest of this like YouTube career that I'm about to embark on. So anyway, let's continue to this next one now that we've gotten over that. One conundrum women face choosing a mate, young women overshook the mark. Wait, what is that? Oh, overshot the mark on malevolent side. Okay, so I'll repeat that, okay? It's hard for me to read a lot of my own notes because like they were massive scribbles at the time. Like just I was just going. Anyway. One conundrum women face choosing a mate. Young women overshot the mark on malevolent side. Medium to long-term strategy. Which I guess is... I guess that's kind of like what I was touching on before when I started getting into that part, like being a young lad and all that. A young lad, though. It's extremely confusing, to be honest. So I've been in like a few relationships in my time. My longest one was 1.5 years and I was engaged. I proposed to her. The problem I see like with women a lot, and the reason why I don't say that there's a problem with the men is because the men are the ones doing the work. Like women are not going out to pick up a guy, and the very few that are, kudos to you. Maybe you should teach your fellow women how to do the same thing. Because not everything is about and dropping the paper and then showing your cleavage and that being a way of flirting. Speak. Use your words. That's why you were given a mouth and a brain to think. Like, this is, anyway, I feel like I'm a fucking idiot, like a preschooler talking to a bunch of kindergarten idiots. But I'm gonna not try to be so negative and down-putting. But I know that all this, no matter who's saying it, for what reason, as long as, like, for me, my intent is pure, I feel that this information is on a need-to-know basis and everybody needs to know. So, like, women, a big suggestion that I could make to you: stop going after the purely malevolent and the purely malicious men, because you're going to get hurt. It's the same way as when you go for the too womanly men, because then they're soft, emotional, they can't protect, they can't think or problem solve correctly, or under stress and pressure. And not just that, women, I really feel like you need to start thinking about how you affect, like the person that's across from you. If you ever see a man trying to let a woman down, unless that woman is a complete cunt or a bitch, like completely disrespectful and unreasonable, you don't see that man treating that woman like shit. Unless they're a piece of shit as well. That could also be a thing, unless the man is a piece of shit. So unless those two negative variables are at play, there's never ever a reason a man is that way to a woman. But without any hesitation, any discussion, anything, one thing could be microscopic happens, and all hell breaks loose for you. This man is a criminal, this man's creepy, this man blah 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 blah. Well, imagine if that's how men treated all you women. And again, it's not like that can be said, because that's just perception. Because I don't push babies out of my vagina because I ain't got no vagina. If women only knew, man, if women only understood how, like, the importance of their role, there's no need for you to be president or anything. You guys have the number one thing all over the world. You create the babies. You give life. You're the only species on this planet, gender, that can provide babies. A man can't be turned into a woman and all of a sudden have babies. No. Women are born with one of the greatest gifts on this planet and in this universe, and y'all are bitching and complaining about the creeps and the gay besties and all that. Well, why don't you take the time to think a little more with this and a little less with this? Things might, change. But then again, that could just be my perception. Alright, so let's continue here. What is the process that gives rise to perception itself? And what's at its basis? And here's the answer. Perception and categorization go hand in hand, the act of investigation. That is why I say the perception is super important. And especially for things like relationships, you ladies need to do more than just an initial 2-minute meet and feeling out the guy and, seeing if he's a dick or a badass or whatever this shit is that turns your fucking gears on. It's for everything too, and I said the same thing for therapy. It's like, you're not supposed to be creating or leading it to where you want it to be. You're supposed to be investigating and dissecting with that person that is talking to you about the problem. And maybe I'm wrong about some of the stuff I'm saying here, which is why this conversation and everything is so fucking important. I'm trying to learn just as much as I'm trying to teach and inform. And that's the process. That could be the process of perception. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, we are works of great art is how we make order. We are works of art, and then, in quotations I put, great art is how we make order, not out of chaos. So great art, it was just a little all over the place with my notes as well. So like I was saying, we are works of art. And in quotes I put, great art is how we make order, not out of chaos, but the will to power. That's why art exists. We were, like sexual evolution, we were developed, shaped by sexual selection, action of consciousness. And that's sort of, if you really think about it, it's all about uniting nature and culture. And again, with the way we perceive things and the way we think about things, it's like culture and nature are one. And that's not yet anyway. Like right now, it's like you're either spiritual or you're religious. So the culture is to be religious, not to be spiritual. So it really gets you like in a sort of thinking mindset and whatnot. So really, take that into consideration. It's about time you unite nature and culture. And I've got about a few minutes left, so I'm going to kind of wrap this up. It's been a good hour. What's the thing that'll solve the problem of perception? And this is here where we get to the good, juicy answers. Master singer spirit, not raw power, not a corrupt will, not a satanic force, the exact opposite of that. What's the thing that'll solve the problem of perception? Instinct to imitate helps create harmony. Look deeply into infinite to find out true purpose, your true self. So, I hope that you all took something away from that today. And I'm gonna continue to try to prepare this all for every Friday so that I can hopefully have a video every week. It's a little bit difficult trying to do it every single day, but I'm gonna at least try to do it once a week. So, all my brothers and brothettes of the nation, I hope that you have fed your minds and they are full. If not, come back next week for some more. Also, please leave everything in the comments, any ideas of like any quotes you got, anything that you want to talk about for food for thought, any type of learning and connecting and self-evolving type of deal. Anything, that gets people thinking and their minds going. Anything like that, put it in the comments. Also, let me know if you liked this video, what you didn't like, and whatnot, Just give me some feedback. Try not to be a douchebag about it or a troll, please. And yeah, so enjoy your day. Also, stay free and stay healthy. Enjoy your food for thought.